Hey everyone, it's Danielle Marie from the One Realty here in Austin, Texas, with your weekly real estate update. Here at the One Realty, we take a data-driven, all-in-one approach to real estate. And so without further ado, we are going to talk about the numbers and the trends that we are seeing here in Austin, Texas. So you probably always see the headlines, Austin's crashing, Austin's crashing. We're going to get into that and talk about a little bit. We're not only going to talk about what happened week over week, but if you stay with me to the end, we're also going to look at the data of where we ended up in April for sales and where we currently are in May. And so I think that's going to give you a big, broader perspective of the Austin real estate market versus just looking at the micro week from week. So if you don't follow me, go ahead, do so. Also subscribe so that you can get my weekly announcements, or save this, and then you'll be able to find this in the future. Okay, with that, we are going to hop right in to where we are with Austin. So if you follow me, if not, welcome. What I do is I track the weekly numbers every week of what is happening in Austin to kind of identify leading indicators and leading trends before we see it on the news. So first and foremost, we are seeing our active listings. Our active listings crossed over that 3615, that 3600,000 or 3,600 threshold. Put it in perspective, last year, our top month, it was like end of June, we were at like 3685, was the most listings we had all year. And I can tell you right now, we're probably easily gonna clean sweep that. I would not be surprised if we see a 3,700 next week. I think it's rapidly approaching. As far as price point, nothing really changed as far as our list price and our median price. So what you're going to see here is, here's our average, here's our median, and then you're also going to see our week over week data. So with our average price point, we just say just shy of 1.2 million, and our median at 750,000. Now, we talked about this again, and it will continue. If we don't see buyers and we continue to see new listings and old listings don't come off the market, we're going to continue to see an increase in, number one, days on market as older listings sit. And then number two, we're going to see an increase in the number of listings with a price reduction. So with that being said, our average days on market, we have continuously seen a trend this past month, where our days on market have continued to go up. So we are over average of over 2 months, we're at 68 days. Our median is over a month at 41. If I go back a few weeks and we want to see kind of where, I remember the first week it happened was beginning of April, which it should be with a buying season. This is the buying season right now. We should see these numbers going down. If we look at 2022 and what happened in 2022 and when did the wheels kind of start falling off? They started falling off, really. Leading indicators saw June, but really everyone saw it in August. I'm going to say I'm starting to see it right now in April. In April was our first week. So the lowest we got for average days on market was a 68 average, a median of 64. You can see, 34 median days on market. You can see our average is right there the same, but what it is our median. Our median is inching up, which is kind of, that can be troublesome, as well as when houses sit longer, they tend to have price reductions. So you're going to see right here the number of price reductions that we're seeing here in Austin. We climbed up over another 1.5% to 50.79% of active listings had a price reduction. Now, let me put this in perspective. At our kind of the worst time of the year is always like in the fall when it comes to sales. The highest we got was just over 57% this year of active listings with price reductions. We are well on our way in that direction. Now, with that being said, if you're a buyer, this is great news. If you are a seller, not so great. So you want to kind of make sure that you're really honed in on your price if you're a seller. If you're a buyer, it depends on what is your aperture for buying. So if you're looking for a very specific property, I can tell you there's other people that are doing the same, because very specific properties in very specific areas will still go off fairly quickly. However, if you are looking at from a broader perspective, if you're just open to any house or any area, you might actually just want to sit on the sidelines a little bit and wait a little bit longer if you're a buyer, unless you find the one and that house is out there and you need to move. With that being said, the new listings, it did drop down. This is maybe it's a reprieve for other sellers. For buyers that are looking for new inventory, we saw a significant reduction in the number of new houses that came to the market this week. I'm not surprised by that. We are getting into the weeks of UT just had their graduation. We're also having high school graduations. Typically, people kind of pause right mid-May, and then we start seeing it again, pick up again in like June. With that being said, out of the 317 that were listed, we did see lower price points come on. So that's good news for some buyers. We saw our average and our median drop down, and this is where week over week it was reduced as well. But overall, we're coming in lower than what our major, that 3,600 number, we're coming in significantly less. That's good news. Now, as far as pending listings, we went up with the total number of pendings by 5. That is nothing major. Our total number of pending listings, if we're looking at historical data, we are significantly under. If we look at our 20-year, what are we closing in May? That number is low. We should have more pending listings than that. But I've talked about that week over week. Our total new pending. So this is the kicker in the teeth. This is my leading indicator of what is to come for closed sales. Our kicker is that last week we had 224 houses go pending. This week it was only 181. So that was Wednesday of last week to Tuesday of this week. There'll probably be a handful that just kind of hang out a little bit longer. But that right there is not necessarily the best news when you're looking to see, hey, are we increasing it? For a seller. For a buyer, it's good for you. Now what we'll see here is what is actually going under contract. So you can see our average and our median price, they are substantially lower than what is being listed. Not surprised, because we do have multi-million-dollar houses out there that are being listed. Days on market. We finally saw an inch up in our days on market for our pending, so we went up by 1. You can still see that we are substantially lower right here than these for the active listings. If this continues to stay 0 and 1 and this continues to not increase, here's my little caveat to you. The reason these might not increase is that means that there's probably buyers out there waiting for new inventory to come on. So when the new inventory comes on, they're going under contract right away. If we see this drop down, that's also going to let us know that people are attacking the new inventory. So once again, you want to price your house right when you come to the market, as well as if a new house comes on the market, you really want to pay attention. Doesn't necessarily mean there might be a deal for that brand new house that came on the market if there's other buyers out there waiting for it. Now, the number of listings with a price reduction, we're going to continue to see this go up. So 39%, I think we'll continue to see this go up as we see this number go up. So no surprise there. If you're just following me, we're still going to go through the sold data for the month, but we're also going to head into the sold data for April and May. We're going to get an idea of what is actually happening out there, sold data wise, for the Austin real estate market. Also, if you are following me, if you're just joining us, feel free to share the space so that other people can see it if you're following me on X. With that being said, we're going to hop right into our closed listings. So closed listings here in Austin, our closed listings, we're seeing, yes, we went up by 6 more in the past 30 days. For price point, if we go week over week, yeah, we see it's up 5,000 here. Our median is up 10,000. This is the time of year we typically see our highest price points happen in about June and July. As far as like the closing prices, May and June, not really July. July, we start kind of seeing an edge off. It kind of drops off a little bit. We will see that. Not surprised that it went up, but we're going to go into the monthly, and that's going to make even more sense as far as where we are performing this month. Also, for our average days on market, you're going to see right here, it went down by 2. Nothing really happened with our median. I always say, let's use our leading indicators, which are our leading indicators are our pending listings right here. So this is what we can expect to see in the works coming down the pipeline. The other thing that we're going to look at is we want to see this closed price to list price. Closed price to list price is what something is selling for versus what is listed for. And then we're also going to look at closed price to original list price. What something's selling for compared to what it was originally listed for. This right here is going to be one of the biggest indicators as far as like the strength of the market post sales, as far as what is happening, what is moving. Because when we start seeing these numbers right here drop off, that's telling you that sellers are getting desperate or sellers are having to sell. For the most part, we have actually stayed fairly straightforward the past couple of weeks. We haven't necessarily seen anything change over the past couple of months. Normally this time of year, these numbers, these percentages would be going up, meaning sellers are getting closer to list price, but not right now. We're not seeing any increases with this. This is good news for my buyers. For my sellers, it's pricing your houses appropriately. So with that, we're seeing our closed price to list price. I really like to look at the median. I think that gives a better idea of, hey, where's the market? It's going about 2% under list price. And if we look at closed price to original list price, we're at 97%. So about 3% total difference. So it's not that dramatically different. However, if you remember, we talked about up here, we talked about the houses, number of listings with a price reduction. So you're going to see right here, we're at 50.79. There are a lot of houses I can say that are in here that are anywhere from 1% to 20% under original list price. If and when those houses start to go pending, we're going to see these numbers drastically drop off. And what's really going to drastically drop off is the closed price to original list price. The closed price to list price, that might not change as much, but this is where we're really going to see when people have started to put offers in on houses that have had price reductions. Okay, with that, we are going to hop over into our monthly data. So I'm going to real quick give you an update. Nothing really has changed for April. I think it was like up by 1 or 2. You can see our average close price in April was $842,000. Our median was $629,000. If we look year over year, it wasn't even a full percent. So barely any movement. If we look at month over month, so I'm looking at April of 25 and I'm comparing it to March of 25. We did see an increase there. We saw an increase of a little over 3% happen in that sector for April for what happened month over month. So that being said, net, we're still positive for the year overall. So the market, as far as what has sold, has still been positive. If we want to venture up here to where we are in May. So, but I didn't mention this. For April, we only sold 723 single family homes. If we look at the historical averages right here, so this is April of 2005 to April of 24, our average was 1,012 houses. Our high that we've ever sold was 1,336 houses, but our low was 731. Ladies and gentlemen, we did not beat the low. So the low for next year for April, if we're looking at the 20 year, will be this past year when we only sold 723. So, and could we still have 8 more houses sell or close out? Yes. And when I say close out, it means it's agents that didn't close out. It's builders that didn't close out. Maybe they haven't put the data in, but we're going to be very, very close. Now for May so far, we've only sold 276 houses. If we look at what is pending, and that's kind of one thing that I like to look at is you can see pending, we're over 1,000 houses here. I would venture to say that we'll probably end up somewhere in the high 700s based on what happened and what was pending in April that closed in May were very similar numbers. Because if you look at where we were for April, so remember we're looking at the 7th to 14th of May when we're over 1,000, and we've stayed fairly constant. And if we go all the way back here, we're very like 972 was beginning of April, and that's for May. I have a feeling we will probably say mid 700s is probably where we're going to be for May closeouts. Now, one thing I will note, and this is not surprising this time of year, is that we have seen our average sales price. So if you joined me last week, it was a little bit higher, but our average sales price, it dropped down, but it's still up. So our average sales price so far for May is $884,000. Now, how does that compare to last year. Well, last year we were at 840, so we're seeing a 5% increase than last year. If we look at our median, it's 682. We're up another 5%. So very, very similar increases from year over year. It's a good sign, but I will also say last year interest rates went over 7% starting in March. Well, I think it was February actually, but March timeframe, we were pretty much in the sevens. So April was like our strongest kind of month last year, and then we dipped down. So if you see May of last year, 840 and 650. If we even look last year in April, we were at 839 and 625, and that was in April of 24. So what that's telling us is last year we kind of stalled out in May. I think our stall out month, unless if interest rates drop down, we're gonna change the name of the game. But if interest rates kind of stay where they are right now, we're right below a 7%. I expect to see kind of staying very similar in June. So with that being said, we have our difference for this month, almost closing this out, but you can see we're up 5% year over year. If we look at month over month, we're up 4.8%. And for our average, our median though is up 8.51%. So that median house that's being sold, seeing our median up for both of these is kind of an indicator that there are people buying. The house prices might have dropped, but maybe the buyers are buying a slightly better, slightly elevated house. I can tell you from what I've seen, you're not seeing investors come and buy as many flips in some of the areas that are heavily saturated. Those areas, those flips, those houses might have sold to be flipped, but they're so heavily saturated right now, and there's so much inventory sitting that if you're an investor and you're going to flip, please, 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 please look at saturation of those areas. Make sure you know your buy box. Make sure you know where you're buying, know what the rents are, know what you're putting into it, and kind of what's coming out in that market in Austin. Now, there are some amazing ones that are opportunities that are out there. You just have to find them. With that being said, the other thing that we are seeing is our days on market. We are higher year over year. We're higher. Well, we're kind of sitting there month over month, depending on what you're looking for. Now, this is where I go back to kind of having the alarms of when we see our market kind of having a little more pain points. And that is right here with those closed price to list price and closed price to original list price, those percentages. You can see we're right on track to last year for our medians. Our averages are just slightly different. So very, very much in line. If we look at down below month over month, this is where it gets interesting. So month over month, you see like we're pretty much exactly the same, slightly down here on this average and slightly down on this average, like just barely. But what this is showing me that unless something changes, we're going to see, which is expected because we see so many houses with price discounts, we're going to see these numbers right here, these closed price to list price and the averages, those are going to start to fall. So sellers, when you get an offer, make sure you're looking at the data for your area to find out what are things closing at, not just price point, but what are they also closing at percentage wise. Also know if you get an offer, go out and also look at what other houses have hit the market. You might have an offer. Are there any other houses that are competitors to yours? How does your house compare to it? If you put your house back on the market, if you don't negotiate, or depending on where you are negotiating, what are your other threats out there from other buyer or other listings that are sitting out there? You really, really got to know your numbers in this market. So without further ado, thank you so much for joining me today. My name is Danielle Marie. I'm the founder of the One Realty here in Austin, Texas, where we take a data-driven, all-in-one approach to real estate. If you have any questions about a particular home, looking to buy or sell, feel free to reach out. You can send me a DM. You can find me at Danielle or email me at danielle@theonerealty.com. Go to theonerealty.com. All of my information is there online, or you can follow me on X at @the_one_realty. With that, have a wonderful day.